Hi everyone, it's great to be back with you again for another In Conversation here on Viking.TV. And today my guest is someone you may just have been lucky enough to see on stage on the Viking cruise. He's joining me from many time zones away, over on the other side of the world. He's a man with magic fingers. He is the guitar maestro, Vincenzo Martinelli. Vincenzo, welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Alastair. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this, and here it's 8 a.m. in Newcastle in Australia on the eastern seaboard. So as you said, a long way away, many time zones away.
I was going to say your day is just beginning and my day is coming to an end. And I was going to ask you to give us some context as to where you are, but you've just answered that. You're in, well, which part of Australia is Newcastle?
So I'm exactly roughly 2 hours north of Sydney on the east coast. I live in a house that has a view of the ocean, and the sun is up, and it's a beautiful day here.
Because it's your summer. You're in the middle of summer right now.
Yeah. The weather has been absolutely beautiful here. Yeah.
I'm jealous. Vincenzo, your name is 100% pure Italian, and your accent is, I would say, pretty pure Australian. So I'm wondering, which of those two countries do you most identify with?
Well, that's a good question. Obviously, I have Italian roots. Both my parents emigrated to Australia from Italy. I was born the first son of Italian immigrants, and so I have dual nationality. So to answer your question, I identify strongly with both cultures. I'm very proud of my Italian heritage and all of the things that have come with that, but also I'm grateful to have been raised in this free country with so many opportunities.
And did you grow up speaking Italian at home? Did your parents speak Italian to each other?
Yes, they did. So I grew up listening to Italian, from my parents and our extended family and friends. I didn't really speak it until I was a little bit older, but by that time I had absorbed it, and it wasn't really difficult for me to just switch into Italian when I needed to. So I was pretty lucky in that sense too. I literally grew up in two distinct, different cultures.
Actually, a thought just occurred to me that I think I probably read it somewhere that for a child, learning two languages early on in their life really does, it's like taking the brain for a workout, and very helpful with learning something like music.
Absolutely. The brain is capable of so many things if you're given an opportunity. So having lived in an environment where I'm absorbing these things, unconsciously was wonderful. So it's, traveling, having the ability to communicate in different languages and sort of training that side of the brain, as you say, is really a great thing.
So tell me, how did you come to the guitar, or did it come and find you?
That's a good point. I think it came and found me. My father was an amateur musician himself. He played the mandolin. His father was an amateur musician, played the mandolin as well. My grandfather was a blacksmith in a very small town in Italy. My father was a cabinet maker. Sadly, he passed away a couple of years ago, but I am pretty certain that the gift of music came to me from that side of the family. My father would play his mandolin in the house ever since I could remember. And we used to play guitar and mandolin together until a few years before he passed, so that's how music came to me.
See, that goes back to what I was saying about the beauty of being able to play an instrument and then play with somebody else. I mean, I tried badly to play the guitar. I have one behind me, but my father didn't play an instrument, but I love the idea. I would have loved to have played it, the two of us together making music would have been, I just think it would have been, I don't know, I think we would have had a relationship, actually. I think it would have been great. Yeah. So at what point, Vincenzo, did you say to yourself, I could do this professionally, I could make a career out of this, rather than just a hobby?
Well, there's a whole story around every one of your questions, Alastair. I'll try to answer this in an interesting way. From the time I was about 8 years old, I had totally fallen in love with the guitar. It wasn't any other instrument. It had to be the guitar. So as my father was playing his mandolin in the house, he used to read the local newspaper, and there was a lift out in the middle section of the paper, in the cartoon section, where you could write away for some music from the United States. And I'll come to this in a moment. But having fallen in love with the guitar, I had my mother take me to the local music store, and she bought me my first guitar when I think I was 9 years of age. So I had a little electric guitar, and I've actually got it here, and I'd be happy to show you, and a small amplifier from Mr. Lindsay at the local music store Foley's in my hometown. It was one of the greatest possessions I ever had. So from that time, I took up learning the guitar seriously. My father's father had a friend who had immigrated to my hometown from Italy via the United States. He became my first music teacher. So from the age of 8 or 9 years old, I was taking lessons seriously with a very fine musician. And he would teach me the rhythms and the melodies of songs such as Maria Elena, Yellow Bird, Bésame Mucho, all these wonderful tangos, La Comprasita, and things that were very exotic to me. And I fell in love with it even further. So one lesson per week turned into 3, because I'd go home to my parents and say, I'd like another lesson with Mr. Davidis. So from that point, I used to take my guitar to school, would practice it as much as I could. I used to get a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I really wanted to play it well. So going back to my original story, my father would give me the comic section of his lift out in the newspaper, and I saw that there was a music book that I could get from the United States. And I'd sent away for it, and about 8 weeks later, it came back via sea. And this book contains songs like Hymn of the Marines, Home on the Range, and believe it or not, I love that as well. So I'd fallen in love with all kinds of music. You know, the sound of Spanish music was in there for me. American country music I loved, Italian folk music and Spanish music I loved. So, you know, it was obvious that I liked pretty much every aspect of this instrument.
I was going to ask you how you were when it comes to practicing, because in order to be proficient at any instrument, you've got to put in the hours of practice. But it sounds like you never had a problem with that. You really wanted to do it.
Yeah, well, look, from the beginning, I didn't really know what I was doing because I was doing it by myself. By the time I went to, you know, serious lessons with, for example, this gentleman, his name was Felice Davidis, I was practicing everything that he'd given me in a lesson, which included learning chords, the rhythms, the melody, and I was actually reading music manuscripts, so I was learning music properly. He would hand write the things that he was teaching me on the treble clef, on music manuscript, and I would take it home and learn it. So I was learning, in essence, another language. And it served me well later when I auditioned to join the Conservatorium of Music and study classical guitar. So I already knew how to read music.
So just to go back to my earlier question, was that the moment when you said, hey, I'm going to do this professionally, I'm going to make a career of this? Was that the moment?
No, it was not. So many years later, fast forward to when I finished high school, I was given an opportunity to work in a bank. So not knowing what that was all about, I applied for the job, went for it, and got it. 6 years later, I went from being a file clerk to a senior loans officer. So I was lending money for homes. The bank was literally 2 blocks away from my house. I was living at my parents' house. I was 17, 18 years old at the time. By the time I was in my early 20s, 6 years later, I was struggling with this job, always having the guitar. By this point, I played in different bands, and I was still obviously very interested in it. I came home one day for lunch, and I sat on the front veranda of my parents' home, and I wrote out my resignation letter. And my mother asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm leaving the bank. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to audition for a place at the Conservatorium of Music because I want to be a professional musician. Well, being an Italian mother, she freaked out. She said, oh, mamma mia, you're going to leave this wonderful job to be a musician. Are you crazy? And I said, no, I was so clear of what I wanted to do, and I went ahead with that, and I literally resigned that day with a formal letter. I went and auditioned for a position at the Conservatorium of Music. I was lucky to get in, and the rest is history.
Well, that's a lovely story. I love that. Good for you. Good for you. It's a good thing you didn't listen to your mother. I know we should listen to our mothers, but not all the time.
Not all the time, yeah.
But just going back to the practicing things, I read a long time ago, I read somewhere that great Spanish flamenco guitarist, who we'll talk about later, Paco de Lucia, that he was made by his father to practice up to 12 hours a day. And his father would put him in a dark room under the stairs. So he practiced in darkness, which meant he couldn't see what his finger, he'd have to learn not to look at where he's placing his fingers and just have it down pat. But I don't think your father was quite that. It doesn't sound like you had to be pushed at all, really.
Not at all. You know, you mentioned a very interesting character there. Paco de Lucia is no doubt one of the finest musicians, let alone guitarists of all time. There are so many stories going around about him. The fact that he was made to practice by his father, I can't verify that one way or another, but it would not surprise me. One interesting story about Paco is that he said in a very famous DVD that he has out, featuring the Rodrigo Concierto de Aranjuez.
Yeah.
With Rodrigo present in the audience was absolutely a wonderful thing.
Wow. Gosh, that's wonderful.
So Paco would say that he absorbed the rhythms and the essence of flamenco simply by listening to it. He actually literally says that he feels like he absorbed it while he was in the womb. So, as you know, one of the important aspects of flamenco music is the compás, which is the rhythm. His father would have what they call a walking stick, and in Spanish that word is a bastón. And he would keep time with the people that would come to his house by using the bastón. And Paco was in another room and play along with his father, playing with his friends, and absorbed this amazing way of keeping rhythm, because he often accompanied the singer and the dancer when he was performing traditional flamenco music. But there's another story that says Paco would spend days and days and days on the roof of an adjacent building practicing scales and arpeggios himself. You know, so that kind of work, whether he was made to do it or he did it himself, obviously served him well. You know, as a musician of any kind, although a lot of people think that working 12, 14 hours a day is a good thing, it's actually not. You know, like any athlete or anybody who's doing something at a very high level, you have to find a way of, there's a term in economics called the law of diminishing returns. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have to know when to stop and how to pace yourself. So the whole philosophy of practice is almost a science, and all the great players talk about it a lot. So finding a way to practice well and knowing when to push, when to stop, when to have a break is comes with experience, and it's a really big deal.
Vincenzo, it's really interesting. I love talking to you about this whole practice thing. Now I know you have is it 2 sons that you have?
Yeah, I have 2 boys. Yes.
So tell me, were you pushing them to go upstairs to their bedrooms and practice, or do they? Maybe they don't play instruments. I don't know.
Guilty.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
So obviously, when my boys were young, I obviously wanted to have music for them in their lives. And I decided on their behalf that the piano was probably the best instrument to start on. They were young, you know, and I found a good teacher. He was actually a friend of mine and a professor at the local Conservatorium of Music. They studied for 3 or 4 years, and they were doing well. But yes, I did have to kind of make them practice. And it came to a point where it wasn't in their nature to be doing it as much as it was for me. And I understood that, you know, I gave them an opportunity I gave them an out. I said, if you guys really don't want to do this, you don't have to. But I believe to this day that one thing it taught them, that anything that they choose to do, whether it's piano or tennis or soccer or whatever it is, if you work hard, you'll get results, because they did their grades and they did really well, but they just didn't have that passion for it that I did. So there's no point in pushing that.
No, but you know, I mean, maybe they'll come back to it. You know, they may well.
Yeah.
You may say, "Oh, I want to take this up again." I mean, and then they'll have the roots right there with them. Yeah.
Look, they were both really good, and I'm sure they're both proud of what they did with music. And my youngest son went on to become a really good drummer, and he had formed a band with his friends. And you know, they both really enjoy music to this day, but they have different professions now. But they're still proud of their old man kicking around and playing his guitar, so that's a good thing too.
Good for you. Good for you. But I'm just interested, was it clear to you from the beginning that you were going to go down the road of the classical guitar rather than join a band and play face-melting electric solos in front of an adoring audience? I mean, I would imagine a lot of teenage guitar players would not be thinking about the classical guitar, but be more thinking about, you know, I want to be out there jamming on my Stratocaster or whatever.
To be fair, I think you've hit it right on the head, Alastair. I don't think there's any guitar player that goes straight into the classical guitar unless you're, I don't know, a John Williams or somebody. But yes, I always wanted to play electric guitar and playing bands. But when I was old enough to understand that playing music professionally meant, you know, studying it seriously. So the avenue of doing that was to join the group where you have orchestral instruments like the cello and the piano and composition and violin. So music that is taught at that level usually encompasses those traditional instruments. It wasn't, I mean, the classical guitar or the Spanish guitar was never regarded as a serious instrument until Andre Segovia put it on the map by playing his arrangements of composers such as Bach and Mozart and all those kinds of people. And he literally single-handedly made people pay attention to this instrument. Prior to him, people would regard it as a street instrument, a folk instrument, something to have a little bit of fun with. So classical guitar is really a new entry into the serious world of classical music. So studying it seriously, you know, meant that I had to join these other people and go along that path of classical music and learning a certain kind of repertoire. It's evolved incredibly in the last 20, 30, 40 years. But yeah, that was how I had to do it.
Excellent. Well, so you studied classical guitar at the Academy of Guitar in Sydney, and then the New South Wales Music Conservatory, where you were awarded, I think I'm right in saying, the highest honour for a graduating student. Congratulations. And then and then I love this. Then you took off for Rome, back to your roots in a way, or your family's roots. How was that time in Rome for you? And what were you doing there?
It was wonderful. It was absolutely amazing. So I was very fortunate. I applied and won what they called at the time an Italian government scholarship. They had a reciprocal arrangement in the arts world between the governments of Italy and Australia, and awarded people in things like architecture, engineering, music, a certain number of scholarships to study in Italy. I had selected this particular music school and applied for this thing, and I won it. and went to study at what they call the Centro Romano della Chitarra in Rome. It was a school established by a guy called Sergio Notaro, who was a direct, they call disciple, student of Andre Segovia himself.
Whoa.
His student, one of his main students, was a guy called Lucio Dosso, who went on to win the Concurso de la Guitarra in Madrid, Spain, making him the #1 classical guitarist in the world at the time. He was my teacher.
Whoa.
So I was very fortunate to study with him. Rome, it was in a part of Rome called Trastevere, which is the historical center. And an interesting part of the whole thing was that my aunt, my mother's sister, who was a Franciscan order nun, lived in a convent right down the street. So I got to meet her. She had set me up in a boys' college down the road where I could sleep and live. And I would go and meet with her pretty much every day, play for the nuns. And I had the most amazing time. It was opposite Piazza Navona.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in a wonderful part of Rome. And looking back now, it really was a magical time. So I was very lucky to have that time.
God, it sounds amazing. Yes, I love the idea of you sitting playing for nuns. That's a lovely image I have in my head.
Different.
Yeah, very different audience. So now you make recordings, you tour nationally and I guess internationally, and you play concerts on Viking cruise ships sometimes.
Yes, I do. That's pretty much it. I just recorded my 5th album, which I dedicated to my sons. The album is called Angel. It's doing really well on the platforms like Spotify and Amazon Music. But yeah, obviously with COVID, the whole cruising thing was over for me. So I took the opportunity to record. But it's something that has given me an opportunity to fulfill a childhood dream. I auditioned many years ago to perform on a cruise ship, and unbeknownst to me, it has led to almost 20 years of getting to know the world and playing in front of these intimate audiences and creating these shows that I feel like are unique to me. So it's been really good, and in recent times, Viking has been a wonderful platform for me to play on. I'm super impressed with the product. I love the vibe on the ship. The audience has been wonderful, and I'm looking forward to going back there again soon.
Well, we look forward to seeing you back, Vincenzo, as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Let's talk about something that I know is very close to your heart, and it's pretty close to mine too, flamenco. Because just tell me, firstly, what drew you into flamenco at the beginning? Did you go to Spain, or did you meet somebody, or were you always been interested in flamenco?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alastair. You know, I believe that now that having studied classical guitar for so long and knowing the instrument fairly intimately, I have friends that obviously play flamenco guitar. What a flamenco guitarist is able to do on this instrument, to me, is superior in every way.
Wow.
The right-hand technique alone allows them to play with phenomenal energy. So they're using the facility of extensor and flexor muscles in a way that allows them to have this amazing ability to create rhythms for their dancer and their singer in a way that a classical guitar, it does not do. In no part of the classical repertoire do we play that kind of rhythm. So they have a technique called rasguado, which means that the fingers come out in a way that classical guitarists don't. So 99% of what we do as classical guitarists is move the fingers inward. That creates the sound on the guitar. Flamenco guitarist does equally the fingers moving out, right? So they have a very strong, balanced right hand, which allows them to play fast, allows them to play really loudly and strong, and it allows them to have complete dominance over the instrument. And I think that the classical guitarist doesn't have that.
I'm loving this, Vincenzo. Could you demonstrate that what you just said to me? The two techniques.
Yeah, this is a Rasguardo stroke.
Whoa, there's a lot of power in that.
This stroke here, you see the fingers fanning out?
Yeah.
That's what they call Rasguardo. And that is a very important element of flamenco guitar music. They have to have the ability to break through. Obviously, if you can envisage in your head what flamenco dancers do, these women make a lot of noise on the stage with the heels and the guys, and the singer, the cantante. And you usually have one or two guitar players at the most sitting back there accompanying this whole thing and keeping it all together musically. They have to be strong, they have to be loud. So they have an amazingly well-balanced right hand. And that is one of the things that attracted me to flamenco. It's like, can I add some of these elements to what I'm doing? Fantastic.
And we talked a little bit earlier on about that great flamenco guitarist, Paco de Lucia. And another part of the essence of flamenco is the concept of duende. And I first came across duende, or the whole concept of duende, through reading a great Spanish writer and poet, Federico Garcia Lorca, who wrote a lot of duende. But for people watching who don't know what duende is, could you just give us a little breakdown on that?
I'll try my best. Duende is a word that is so powerful. You know, if there was a Spanish gitano or gypsy person here, they would verify that. So duende is really the spirit. That's the word I think is best describes it, or the essence of flamenco. So it is the domain of the gypsies, the people who have suffered the persecution and have gone through the invasion of the Arabs and the Phoenicians as they came to Andalusia back in the day, and brought with them not only, you know, pain and conquest, but they left behind a lot of traditions, like the history of the dancing. If you go far enough back, flamenco dancing has its roots in the gypsies that came in through Andalusia, the Arabs and the Indians, and they melded it, mixed it in with what they already had. So flamenco has a very strong history and essence of other exotic cultures. And when you meld all that together, you have what we call flamenco today. But flamenco in it, you know, through the words, in the singing, and the rhythms, and the way they transmit their music, is rooted in almost like the gospel music of the blacks that were persecuted, the slaves from Africa. There's a lot of their stories talk about the persecution, how they were invaded, the way that the men toiled in the fields, the suffering of the women who had no money and support. You know, these people who had their freedoms taken from them, their religions compromised. So duende talks about all of that. So duende, in essence, is spirit and the history and the way that they went through this moment in time. So they're super proud of it. And there was for the longest time, anybody who was allowed to take part in flamenco music were the gitanos, the gypsies. I've been to places like Jerez de la Frontera and other places in Andalusia like Cadiz and Sevilla, where there was the longest time you just could not walk into a place where this music was being played and performed if you were not a legitimate gypsy, a gitano. And only in recent times have they started to share it, and in more recent times it's become commercialized through people like Paco de Lucia, because the world wanted to experience this. The country that where flamenco is the most popular, you and your listeners may be very interested in this, is not Spain. It is in fact Japan.
Wow, I did not know that, really.
Yeah, they are super interested in other cultures, but flamenco music is very popular in other countries, and Japan is number one.
Well, I think going back to Garcia Lorca, he described Duende as being, I mean, you described it perfectly, as a mysterious force that everybody feels, but that nobody can explain. And I think you must have been in I mean, you've been in, I guess you've been in Spain and played with other flamenco guitarists, and have you had that experience? And that must have been extraordinary.
I have, and I've seen a lot of them perform live. You know, to give flamenco the respect that it deserves, I am not a flamenco guitarist. You know, these guys start from when they're very, very small. I incorporate flamenco techniques into my playing because I like it and enjoy it so much. But flamenco music is something that, you know, you can't just turn it on and off. It's like everything. It's a lifelong thing. If you play flamenco seriously, you can't then be a jazz player or a singer and folk player. It is so difficult, and you have to keep on top of this thing. And true flamenco is when the guitarist accompanies the singer and the dancer. So flamenco, in essence, are those three elements.
Yeah.
These guys like Paco de Lucia, as you mentioned correctly, Vicente Amigo, and so many others have turned it into a, you know, their own unique thing. So you're watching these guys playing solo flamenco guitar at a very high level, and you can't but not admire that. But true flamenco is when the flamenco guitarist accompanies the singer and the dancer.
Excellent. Vincenzo, whenever I get the chance to talk with someone such as yourself, a musician, I love just to talk a little bit about the practicalities of what's involved in being a professional musician. Tell me, how many guitars do you own, and how challenging is it traveling with them?
Very good question, Alastair. I get asked that a lot, you know, especially how many guitars I have. I have about 12.
Whoa.
Yeah, and they all have a story, and I love them all. Traveling with a guitar is very difficult, as you can appreciate. You know, negotiating travel on planes and buses and aeroplane, these things, it is difficult. I use a nylon string guitar now called a Godin. It's a thin-bodied guitar. Mm-hmm. It travels with me. I'm able to take it on the aircraft. As you can appreciate, the risk of having a guitar damaged in the hold is very high. It's very expensive to buy a seat for these things. Mm-hmm. So I have been very lucky. I turn up at the airport. I'm usually well dressed. People can tell I'm a musician. It gets to travel in a first-class cabinet, or I'm able to take it and put it in the overhead cabin. And I can only ever travel with one guitar at a time because it's cost prohibitive. I've only got two hands. So, but I've made it work. I have experience in this now, so I've got it down to a fine art.
Vincenzo, it could be worse. You could have been a double bass player, in which case, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw one the other day on the Paris Metro. I mean, you've got to really love that instrument to drag it around with you.
Right, totally. Yeah, or it could have gone the other way, Alastair. I could have been fortunate and been a flute player or something, you know.
Or a harmonica player. That would be, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I can't resist. I can notice you have extremely beautiful hands. Are they insured? Do you insure them like Keith Richards and Lang?
It's funny. It's another great question. My son has often said that to me. The short answer is no. No. The premiums are very high, and I'm not precious about my hands. You know, I'm very careful with the way I shape my nails, and you know, I take care of what I do. I garden. I ride a bike. I swim. I play soccer. I've never been that guy to put them in kid gloves or insure them. You know, in response to the insuring thing, if something were to happen to me and I lose a finger or a nail, any amount of money that I may get from an insurance premium would never replace a finger or the ability to play music. So for me, it was a no-brainer. To me, it was always a waste of money. So I try to take care of them. I shape my nails the way that I was taught to, and take care of them in a common sense way, like most of us do, and use the money that I would have spent on premiums to go out for dinner.
Excellent. And do the nails on your right hand? Do you grow them long so you can yeah, I think yeah. Of course, they're beautiful nails. Beautiful nails.
Thank you. Well,
yeah. So that you use those as to pluck the. Can you just show us how you use?
Yeah, sure. So the nails, are the way that we obviously make a sound on the guitar. So it's a combination of flesh and nail. And in the Segovia school, the flesh on the fingers of the right hand gave you the body of the tone. The shaping of the nail and the way it ramps off the string gives you the focus of the note. Wow. So you're getting like a nice full-bodied rounded sound. So for example, thumb. So what we try to do, even though these are nylon strings, is to get a really full-bodied, rich sound. And we spend a long time shaping the right hand, putting it in the right position, trying to create this beautiful sound. And after a while, it becomes second nature. But I can tell you, it's a lot of hard work in the beginning because we're trying to get a lot out of these tiny little things called strings. So we're forcing pressure down on the string. It resonates through what we call the bridge on the saddle of the guitar. Yeah. That downward pressure forces air into the body of the guitar, and it finally makes its way out of the sound hole. Wow. So there's a whole science to this. That sound is coming out of the sound hole, and all generated from, as you said, the nails and the flesh on the right-hand fingers, or a left-hander if you're a left-handed player.
No, but that's fantastic to hear. Quite how, to hear in detail what goes into doing what you do. And on your left hand, are they all calloused on top of the?
You probably can't see this, but there's a few little indentations on the tips of the fingers.
I could just about see those. Yeah.
So obviously no nail on the left hand. You keep the nails short here, and obviously the body is one organism. So we try to, even though we're doing two distinctly different things, it becomes an organic one thing. So it's repetition and practice that allows you to do anything that sounds half decent.
Excellent. Vincenzo, I'm going to think we'll wind it up now, but I just have one more question for you. There'll be people watching this who may well be retired, who may well be considering learning a musical instrument. Have you got any advice for them? And is it a case of it's never too late, or maybe sometimes it is too late?
That's another great question, Alastair. Obviously, music means so much to me. It's given me so many life experiences. Anybody, I would say to anybody, young or old, who has half an inclination towards trying it out, 100% go for it. Try it, have some fun with it. Don't take it too seriously, and see where it takes you. I can guarantee you will have a lot of fun.
Vincenzo, that's a lovely note to end on, and I just want to thank you for a really great conversation. We'll let you go now and get on with your day. I know it's early in the morning for you. Thank you very much for joining us on In Conversation. And ladies and gentlemen watching, if you'd be interested in hearing and seeing some more of Vincenzo's music, guitar music, then we'll put on a video right after this. Thank you, and I hope to see you all again soon. Take care of yourselves, and until next time, goodbye.